let's learn the books of the Old Testament, and we're going to incorporate some hand motions. So starting with Genesis, Genesis is the book of beginnings. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And we're also going to learn about the beginning of the nation of Israel. So like a rising sun, this is the beginning of the days, let's say, of creation, but also of the nation of Israel. So Genesis, beginning. Exodus, put your hands like this. Exodus, like for the big exit from Egypt. So think of like we're going to exit out of the land of Egypt. Leviticus has the letter L because Leviticus starts with an L, but Leviticus is a book about the Levites or for the Levites. Levites are a tribe of Israel. They are the priestly tribe. So these are going to be the laws about how to be a holy people. God wanted the whole nation to be priests, and this is how they could live a life that's holy. So Leviticus. Numbers, think about a hashtag for numbers. It's based on there's going to be 2 times where Moses is going to have to count the people, number the people. So we get the book of Numbers. Then we have a Deuteronomy, which is second law. All right, so now they're at the promised land. They're about to enter, but Moses is going to give them the law one more time before they enter. Joshua, think about it like you're about to draw a sword. So that's the book of Joshua. It's going to be a 5-year conquest for the land of Canaan. And there's going to be a lot of fighting and then dividing up the land. So Joshua. Judges really means deliverers. So we're going to get this cycle of redemption where the Israelites sin, they fall into some kind of oppression, and then a deliverer redeems them, brings them out, delivers them, and then it cycles again 7 times through the book of Judges. So think Judges, deliverers. And then we have the book of Ruth. So think of like long hair for Ruth. That's during that same time where people were doing what was right in their own eyes, except Boaz is living according to God's law. So this is a story about obedience that leads to love. So Ruth. Then we have 1st and 2nd Samuel. So think about David getting ready to sling a stone into Goliath's head. That 1 Samuel has to do with Saul's king and Jonathan, his son. And then 2 Samuel is going to be when David becomes king and how he reigns. That's going to bring or usher in the monarchy. So 1st and 2nd Kings, think of it like you're putting a crown on your head. Kings. Chronicles is, think about like you're the chronicler. You're writing this scroll, or if you're writing on a scroll, you're the chronicle. You're the chronicler, 1st and 2nd. And what you're doing is you're keeping a history of the kings, but you're looking back at it. And through the lens of what you've learned, you're recording that history. Ezra is going to be reading a scroll. So a lot of Ezra, he's going to be encouraging the people to build a temple. He's reading a scroll. Nehemiah, he's going to be building. So pick up a brick. You're putting a brick into the wall. Nehemiah's role is going to be building a wall. And he's telling that story in the book of Nehemiah. Then we have the book of Esther. Think about like holding out the golden scepter. So several times in the book of Esther, she is the queen. She enters the presence of the king. It might cost her life, except he holds out the golden scepter. And as a result, she is able to save the nation. Then we have the book of Job. So we're going to start the books that have to do with poetry. So the first 5 books have to do with the law: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And then we're going to have a long set of historical books that have to do with history. Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther are all historical books. When we get to Job, Job is a book about grief. So think about like tearing your clothes, because that's often how the people in the Old Testament would grieve. They would tear their clothes to show their grief. And then we have the book of Psalms. So Job's is going to start the poetic books. And we have Psalms, which is like the hymn book of the Israelites. I think of it like a singing. All right, so hymns. Then we have Proverbs, where we want to listen. And who are we listening to? Are we listening to the words of the wisdom woman, or are we listening to the words of the adulterous woman? So who are we listening to? And that's the book of Proverbs. Ecclesiastes has to do with vanity. So think of it like it's all just dust in the wind. It's all just vanity. It's empty. Everything under the sun, if we have that perspective of under the sun, it's just emptiness. Their life has no meaning or purpose. A heart for the Song of Solomon, because it is a love story, a passionate love story about this young man and this Shunammite. Isaiah starts the prophets, all right? So the books of poetry are going to be Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. Isaiah starts the prophets. Now, the prophets do tell about the future, but they also proclaim the truth. So Isaiah go like this: Isaiah proclaimed the truth. Jeremiah is the weeping prophet because he's going to see the destruction of Jerusalem. No one's going to listen to him. So weeping, and then he writes Lamentations. A lament is a tearful crying song. So that's what he writes in Lamentations. That's going to be some of the prophets that are going to be called the major prophets. So that's Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea. So these are major prophets. Ezekiel, the watchman, because God makes him a watchman. Daniel, think of the fiery furnace and his friends in the fire. Hosea, think about it like putting on a wedding ring. Hosea is a prophet that has to marry a prostitute who keeps running away. He has to keep chasing her down. And that pictures how Israel keeps running from God and God keeps pursuing them. Joel is about a plague of locusts. So think of it like eating, and they eat everything in sight. Amos is a plumb line. So he's holding a string with a plumb line, and we can see how level a wall is. Amos is using this as an illustration to say, you don't measure up. So think of Amos and a plumb line. Obadiah is about the Edomites stabbing the Israelites in the back. Like they betrayed them when the Babylonians came, and they helped out their enemies rather than helping out their brothers. Edom is the descendants of Esau, whereas Israel is descendants of Jacob. Jacob and Esau were brothers. Jonah is a prophet that gets swallowed by a fish to make fish lips. Micah is where we get the prophet about Jesus being born in Bethlehem. So think of it as like this rocking a baby. Nahum is a prophecy about the city of Nineveh being destroyed by a flood. So think of the people swimming out of that city. Habakkuk has a conundrum. He's unsure about what God's doing. God says he's going to destroy Israel and use the Babylonians to do it. Habakkuk says, aren't they more wicked than we are? And God's like, yes, but that's who I'm going to use. And then I'm going to judge them sometime later. But it's a real head scratcher, Habakkuk. Zephaniah, think of it like strumming on your air guitar because the Lord will rejoice over you with singing. So Zephaniah as a prophet is again describing some of the idolatry and the sin of Israel. But yet God still rejoices over them, quiets them with his love. Haggai, think of a hammer where he's encouraging them to build the temple. So once they come back from the return, here, build the temple. That's Haggai. Zechariah, think 4 horsemen. That's how the book's going to start off, with this vision of 4 horsemen. And then Malachi, think of a big question mark, because in the book of Malachi, Malachi's asking a lot of questions. God's asking a lot of questions. Would you give that sacrifice to your governor? Or when you keep these feasts, are you really honoring me? It's going to be filled with questions. So let's walk through some of these books of the Bible. So Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, the plumb line, Obadiah, backstabbing, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi.